Hello and welcome. Well, newborn babies are everything that we epitomize with perfection, an impeccably sublime, exquisite blessing, symbol of hope and faultlessness. Every newborn parent at one time or another, I'm sure, has held their newborn and realized how delicate and fragile they actually are. Now, depending how sleep deprived you are, most parents, of course, are eager to build their bond with their newborn and to find out more about their personality and are eager to engage in play. But how can we play with something so feeble and vulnerable as a newborn? Well, our special guest today, Belinda Joyce, is here to tell us how. A little bit about our guest. Belinda is a midwife, maternal and child health nurse with over 20 years experience. She's also a mother of four and author of Survive and Enjoy Your Baby. Now, her passion is in providing safe, evidence-based advice and options to parents so they can find their own path to parenthood. And today, Belinda is going to share her expert ways how you can play with your newborn baby. Welcome back. How are you?
Well, thanks, Rach.
Now, watching a newborn baby achieve new milestones is incredibly exciting and reassuring for parents as they progress each new experience. And, the baby, of course, strengthens the neural pathways in their brain. I just wanted to ask you initially, is it true that a large portion of babies' early brain development is dependent on the activity that they actually learn through play?
Absolutely. And that's why play is such an important thing. And it needs to start from birth.
Yeah. And of course, from birth, now moving from the confinement of the womb into the outside world, no doubt, it can take their bodies and their muscles some time to and getting used to. So in your opinion, what would be some of the, I guess, the first intentional play movements a baby or a parent, sorry, would see their baby engage with? Would it be something, for example, like their ability to turn their head on purpose? Or would it be something
Mm.
else?
I think it's really probably just eye contact, because we know that interaction with the parent is probably considered sort of early communication and first play. So for a newborn baby, their parent's face, particularly their mother, uh, is their favourite toy. You don't need to spend any money, you don't have to go out to the shops to buy it. And they've done a lot of research which actually looks at what babies really want to look at, and a face is their favourite thing, even if it's just drawn on a piece of paper, a really simple face. And if the face is smiling, they like it even more.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I just wanted to just establish very, very quickly too about movement in those very early stages with the newborn and how important that is. And I just wanted to establish what is flat head syndrome and is there any way of preventing that and just trying to encourage movement and interaction as you were just mentioning?
Sure. So babies who develop a flat head, that's actually called a plagiocephaly in most cases, depends where the flatness is on the head. And it is really common, I guess, since we've been sleeping our babies on their back, because it's the safest way to sleep your baby, and you absolutely should do that. But when they're not sleeping, it's really important that they have the ability to move around and have pressure put on different parts of their head. So having some time, even when we're carrying a baby, often they're in our arms and the pressure again is on the back of their head. So looking at different ways to carry your baby over your arm, making sure that they have tummy time. Tummy time has a huge amount of benefits, but one of them is that it's getting the pressure off the back of the baby's head.
Yeah.
But they're also developing that strength through their neck and shoulders to be able to sort of lift up and gain that head and neck control. But yes, any flatness on the head, it's really important to notice if that's developing, or if they've got a preference to always, when you lay them down, to always turn their head one way, just trying to really gently turn it the other way if it goes easily. If it doesn't, talk to your child health nurse or your GP. And in some cases, a paediatric physio is the most important person to see, which we can refer you on to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's lots to cover on this topic today, but I just wanted to acknowledge, of course, that we published your article and the title is How to Play with Your Newborn Baby. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please tell us what it's about and, of course, what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, I think so often it's hard to think of how you could play with a newborn baby. And unless you've been around babies a lot, I think many parents think that you can't really play with them, that they sleep a lot, and they do. But I guess just highlighting the importance of getting in there and playing with them and gradually looking at the different ways you can do that. So bringing in some toys, not that your newborn would be able to hold them and do anything with them to start with, but they certainly enhance that play and can make noises and all sorts of things like that. But really just to say, play with your baby and enjoy them.
Cool. Now, the question, of course, is how do we play with the tiny newborn baby?
Yeah. So moving on from that, just talking with them, but every time you're changing their nappy, particularly if they're on a change table in front of you, they've got that perfect distance that they can see your face. And so just being animated and talking to them, smiling with them. Babies love it if you sing to them. Even if you don't like your own voice at all, your baby will love your voice. So singing some songs, it can be anything really, but nursery rhymes have a really great rhythm that babies enjoy. And if you think, I can't really remember any, put on a children's program on the TV or have a look online, and you'll probably find the words and actions and things just start flowing back.
Yeah, so talking is an early form of play, which totally makes sense, as play, I guess, in its basic form is really engaging attention towards something or someone else. So, why is hearing your voice in particular so important for a newborn baby? Is it the fact that as a mother that they would have naturally heard it in the womb, and it's that feeling of comfort for the baby?
Yes, absolutely. So they already know their mother's voice,
Hmm.
and often their father or partner's voice. They've heard those through the latter parts of the pregnancy. So they do recognize it. They will often turn their head to look for you if you talk to them. And they're more likely to do that with a voice that they know. And it is reassuring because it's familiar.
Yes. Now, I wanted to just ask a question about the engagement with a newborn baby. At what age do babies start to smile and show a positive response to the
Yes.
engagement that you have with them?
Most babies are smiling really well by 6 weeks of age. So really getting good eye contact with their parent or carer or family and friends, especially if you're quite animated and really smiling lots and telling
Hmm.
them a funny story or something like that. That's often when you'll get those first smiles.
Yes.
They don't always go to their parents, unfortunately. It could be a friend who comes in and just starts chatting with them and they get excited and give you that big, big, huge smile. But it is a real milestone that most parents love because I think it feels like they're being almost rewarded for all the work
Yes.
that they're doing. It's like a payback.
Yeah.
And it does feel very special.
You're getting a return on your energy a little bit in the sense that,
Yes.
okay, it's actually understanding. So, talking
Mhm.
about visual play, how can visual play in simple, I guess, sensory input for babies help with their development then?
Well, they start to learn, some spatial awareness. They start to learn where they are in relation to everyone around them. They start following, so actually watching, a toy going past, or it might just be you walking across the room, and they might be lying on the floor, and they sort of start tracking. Those sorts of things are really important.
I understand, is it from as young as I think 3 months of age that bubbles are a great way to help with babies develop things like cognitive, physical, and also their vocab development. But it also helps strengthen their eye muscles and visual tracking, which of
Mm.
course, helps develop focus and concentration. So I just wanted to ask on that, is visual tracking a skill that babies are actually born with, or is it something that we have to help them develop and it's something that is learnt?
It is a learnt skill, but
Okay.
again, you don't have to be terribly structured in you don't have to have read a book on it or do any special research to know how
That's
to
good
do
to
it.
know.
In most, yeah, it is, takes all the pressure off. In most cases, babies will learn that just by watching things around them. But of course, things like bubble play will help develop that because they're going to look around and follow the bubbles. And again, it's like a toy that enhances that interaction and that ability for your baby to practice those skills, because
Yeah.
most of what they're learning and going to be able to gain in skills only happens with practice.
So bubbles, I guess, can also help with spatial awareness if we think about it logically, because their sense of direction and just seeing their environment around them, which is really great for movement in the early stages. Of course, as they sort of watch the bubbles float through the air. And, as we know, babies have such an inquisitive nature to everything. So I just wanted to ask, do you think that as babies watch the bubbles float through the air, that it can help them develop their muscle tone and development also?
Yes, yes, because they're going to turn their head to start with, but
Yeah.
as they get stronger, perhaps if they were laying on the floor on their back and watching the bubbles, they're going to actually maybe roll over. It depends on their age and what they're physically able to do, but it's going to almost sort of tease them into looking around and getting into different positions so that they can keep watching the
Yeah.
bubbles. Yes.
And I guess
Yes.
this would be pertinent as they start to crawl. I'm guessing chasing bubbles can be a really great form of gentle exercise. So, do you think that activities such as trying to reach out and catch bubbles, as they're developed and starting to crawl, also can help with progressing, let's say, their hand, eye, foot coordination, even their gross motor skills, but largely that these types of things can help develop things like self-confidence later on in life, because that's going to help their muscle development, with activities such as walking and running, jumping, climbing,
Mhm.
and all of those types of things as well.
Bubbles can help with all of those things and lots of other toys too, just placed out of reach and, held by a parent and for the baby to sort of come towards them.
Yeah.
But also, a baby's likely to try and crawl towards you as well, because, like we've said, you're their favourite toy, the parent. So they're really, really likely to try and come towards you. And so, getting right down on the floor and actually motioning and calling for them and telling them how clever they are, and the same when they're starting to walk as well. That will often work quite well as well. So you can use the bubbles and the toys and just yourself to help with that. But yes, if they're practicing all of those skills and their bodies getting stronger, all of that will flow on to later, more optimized development, I guess, and in turn confidence.
As well. Now,
Mhm.
earlier you mentioned tummy time, so I just wanted to expand on that now. And why is tummy time so important?
When we've got these babies who, we sleep them on their back, and most of the time when they're in our arms, they're on their back, and when we change their nappies, they're on their back. They often don't really know that the rest of their body exists. So it's really important from that aspect to pop them on their tummy and give them a chance to spend some time in a different position to build up that strength in the back and neck and shoulders so that they can push up. By 8 weeks, babies that have enjoyed tummy time will be able to lift their chin up off if they're on the floor, they'll be able to lift their chin up off the floor and keep it up for a little while and turn their head and look around. But if they haven't practiced it, they won't be good at that. So the other thing with tummy time is starting it right from birth. And at birth, it might just be on your chest. If you're laying down and they're on your chest, it might be after you've changed their nappy on the nappy change table, just while they're supervised really close with your hands on them, because at some point they will roll. So tummy time, the safest place is definitely on the floor. But getting that practice in and getting, I guess, strong early on means that they'll most likely continue to enjoy tummy time. But those babies that don't have much tummy time to start with, their heads grow quite quickly and become quite heavy. So if they haven't had tummy time for a few weeks and then you start doing tummy time, they might dislike it. They might think it's not that much fun because they can't lift their head up and they can't turn it and they feel a little bit stuck. And we'd prefer babies to enjoy tummy time so that it's enjoyable, it's easy, it's fun, and they'll learn those skills. So I guess kind of trying to find a way to give those babies that dislike tummy time a chance to practice those skills is by sort of laying them over your arm on their tummy, popping them on your chest when you're lying down, doing things like laying down on the floor right next to them, putting really interesting toys in front of them that have mirrors on them and things that will really distract them from the fact that they're doing something they don't really enjoy, to try and get that time in of practice.
Mm-hmm. So on that, why is it so important to start tummy time as early as possible? As you mentioned, their heads grow quite quickly in the weight. So no doubt that if they haven't strengthened the muscles, it's going to be, I'm guessing, even harder for their muscles to strengthen if they haven't sort of had tummy time
Yeah,
from an early age. Is that why? Is that why we need to?
that's the main reason, I think, because it means that they're able to use their body and work their body. In the past, babies wouldn't have always been on their backs all the time. They would have had a chance to try different positions. And babies don't need to be in our arms all the time. It's important that they have some time just to use their bodies. So laying on their back, laying on their tummy, even some time on their side, at supervised playtime, not when they're going to bed. When they're in their cot, they should be on their back always. But it's really important for them to feel their own little body.
Yes, and the movement. So is it right that even short bursts of tummy time from up to a minute can help? So it's more so that even if a baby dislikes tummy time, it's more the frequency of just of them sort of having the opportunity to build the strength in their muscles, would you say?
Yes, I often say to parents, even if they just try and aim for a short period every time the baby's awake during the day, not overnight, to give them a chance on their tummy. And if it's only a minute, then that's fine. And if it's 10 minutes and they're enjoying it, you might go longer. You'll get to know your baby and what they can tolerate and what they're enjoying as well.
Mm-hmm. So as you just mentioned, it's really great for us to just to remember that there's other positions that you can lay them on their side, and that equally is going to help develop other sort of muscle groups and that sort of stuff as well. But I mean, how does lying on their back actually help? And, should we sort of, in that instance, sort of elevate their head or not?
No, just having them flat on their back is probably the best position to be in. And babies like being laid underneath a play gym or something of interest. And when they're on their back and not being held and they're not wrapped up to sleep, they can stretch all their limbs out. They'll find their feet. They can look at their hands. They often look at their fingers with amazement, like, what is this? This is amazing, because they're learning about their own body. And to start with, I'm sure they don't even know that it's their own body, but it's another fun plaything. It's just that opportunity to use their body without being confined in wraps or parents' arms.
And I guess it's about also that interaction that you have with a baby and how you're comfortable holding them as well, filling those different sort of positions, seated or what have you. I guess this could be good. For example, if you bend your knees seated and they lay against your thighs facing you, which is really great to encourage face-to-face interaction. So it's about finding how you're comfortable holding your baby as well, would you say?
Yes, yeah. And trying different holds, especially as your baby gets a little bit older and they develop better neck and head control, trying different positions and seeing what you feel confident, how you feel confident holding them.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to ask, and I've got a gut feeling what your answer is going to be for this one, but what's your opinion on baby swings or baby bounces? I know that there's been a lot in the media in the last few years about them. I'm not going to preempt what your answer is going to be, but over to you. What's what's your opinion?
The media does sort of go around and around on this, but look, babies really do enjoy things like the bounces and swings.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want babies that are too young put in any of those devices. And we always have to remember that anything that allows the baby to get into a position or to do something like weight bearing on their legs before they're really ready, we don't want them to do it for very long. So I think the stories that you hear are usually from when these sorts of devices are overused. And I can see why they get overused when the babies enjoy them so much. But it's not great for them to be, hanging in, say, a jumper for long periods of time. So I often say hold those kind of devices for times where you've got to make dinner or there's a job you need to do hands-free and you know your baby will love it. Always supervised, and maybe just for 10 minutes at a time, not for long periods.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, talking about some toy options, what are your recommendations in the article you list? You've got a fantastic list of some toy options. So I'd love to hear from yourself what your suggestions are.
My favourite all-time toy for all age groups are books. And many people wouldn't think of using books with a newborn baby, but young babies still enjoy books. Research has shown that they really like high contrast sort of books. So black and white, zigzags and spots and just some pops of colour. They don't need to be, really detailed pictures. And using books that are sort of board books, fabric books. Some of them have got, crinkly pages and furry,
I love those ones, yes.
Touch and feel kind of books. They love those. They also can't damage them as easily, so they'll last a lot longer. And as they get older, you can let them play with them as they are a toy. And we just want them to think that toys are fun books are fun because books are so important later in life when they head off to kindergarten and school. So it's sort of setting them up for that positive thought about books.
Yep.
And then moving on to lightweight rattles, and there's some really great little toys that you can even Velcro onto their ankle or their wrist, and so they can shake a rattle before they can really grasp it. By 12 weeks, most babies can grasp a lightweight rattle and shake it, and they will sometimes hit themselves in the head with it as well. So just keep an eye on them. Always with toys, we do want them to be supervised, and really important that the toys are made for babies. So there's toys on the market that are for 0 to 36 months, and those toys have got less pieces, less small pieces that they could possibly choke on. If there was any batteries in them or anything like that, they've usually got the screw closures, and they're covered by safety standards that mean that they're safer. Yeah.
Now, play gyms as well. I wanted to ask your opinion on what you think of those. Of course, the colourful hanging toys and mirrors and all those types of things as well. You mentioned them earlier on. What are your thoughts?
I think they're fantastic. Again, you don't have to spend huge amounts of money, but just a play gym that hangs toys over your baby. And some of them you can even add your own toys to as well, because there's lots of toys that come with, the little hooks on them. But babies early on, they love just looking at them, and you might push them and make them move so your baby can watch them. And as they get older, they'll actually hit them themselves and have quite a bit of fun doing that.
And you list play mats on your list also, which obviously is something as we're practicing tummy time constantly, consistently every day, is something, of course, that but some of them also can have mirrors and different textures and crinkle fabrics and sections and those types of things as well. So obviously they're a great addition to any sort of toy box, would you say?
Absolutely. And often the play gyms have got a play mat under them, so they can do both.
Yep. And you've got a list of some other bits and pieces as well. Of course, that we don't necessarily have to go out and buy things around the house as well. You said socks with bells in them. lightweight teddy bears, dolls, and all those types of things as well. So we'll leave the rest of it for people to have a look at that in the article. You do mention, obviously, reading is something that's very important also, that babies enjoy books, and it's never too early to start reading to your baby. So can you maybe just expand on that for a little bit?
Yeah, so if you were going to be reading to or looking at a book, I'd probably call it, with a newborn baby, you know, even just sitting them on your lap facing outwards with the book in front, and you don't have to read all the words. If it's a book that has got lots of words, you can. And if both you and the baby are happy, you can go ahead and do that. But in many cases, just opening up the book, telling them about what you can see. If there's an animal there, you might make the noise that the animal makes and tell them about the lion that roars. And then you might, you know, as you're turning the page, your baby's actually starting to learn how a book works, that it starts by looking at this page and then we move on to the next page, and that books even have lots of different pages. You definitely don't need to read everything that's in there. And I've had quite a few parents say to me, but I don't really like reading, and so I don't really want to read to my baby. You don't have to even read any of the words. Even if you just point to the pictures and tell them your own story, your baby will still think that that's really lovely time to spend together.
Yeah.
It's a great activity to do before bedtime, if you don't rev them up too much, and it's just a soothing kind of thing to do. If it's a very exciting book, or a book that has singing or rhyme involved, then maybe it's not so good just before bed. But it's a really lovely little sort of, I guess, activity you can add to your routine.
Yep. And also, what are the dangers of introducing screen time to babies and toddlers under 2 years of age? Because I'm completely making an assumption here, but if parents aren't maybe a big fan of reading, they may just think, well, it might just be just as easy to put an iPad or a phone in front of a baby, and let that do the job for me. Hypothetically,
Yes.
not saying that that's happening, but I'm just, making an assumption here. Um, so I just wanted to ask,
Screens
yeah.
screens really are, they're everywhere. So realistically, we can't keep babies away from screens entirely. The guidelines state that there's no benefit to babies and young children from screens under 2 years of age. And that in fact they shouldn't be getting any screen time. And I think I agree that there's no benefit, but realistically, let's take the pressure off parents, because there are screens everywhere you go, in shops, in your home. Some refrigerators have screens. There's your phones, the TV. If you choose to watch TV, then your baby is going to be exposed to screens sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to take that pressure off. But I would encourage people not to have screens, say their TV on all day. So every time their baby plays in the lounge room, perhaps we don't want them being distracted and watching the screen, rather than playing and using their body and having their tummy time and all of those things.
Yep.
So the risk of screen time really is that lack of floor play and lack of learning. And I guess the benefits of screen time, they have found one benefit for young babies and children is that with video calls with family or friends, there's that bonding sort of side of things. So they're actually getting to know that person, and it's the interaction between them that gives the benefit, not the screen itself. And the same thing can happen if you were watching a program on TV with your baby or with a young child, and you were singing nursery rhymes and you were doing the actions and you were enjoying that time together. Again, the benefit has the television program has enhanced the way you're playing with the baby, and that works really well.
And of course, getting outdoors, I'd love to know your opinion on how and when and how much, weather dependent, of course, as well. But
Yes.
yeah, I just wanted to sort of touch on that for a moment.
It's really important to get outside, breathing that fresh air in, getting a little bit of exercise, particularly for parents. But babies love looking out from the pram and seeing what the world around them, and you can tell them about the world around them. A lot of prams early on face the parent, and as they get older, they can be turned around so that the baby's really open to seeing everything. You can show them cars and trees and animals and whatever's happening, an aeroplane flying over, showing them that. Being around trees and nature is really important. So for a young baby, you might put a blanket down or a mat down on the ground under a tree, and they can watch that tree above them moving in the wind, watch the birds flying overhead. You can show them flowers. There's lots of things you can do, but I think in modern life, it can be very easy to either be sort of inside or out to the car, into the car, and then out of the car and into an appointment or a shop. And some families don't spend much time outside. So like you said, weather permitting, if it's pouring rain, it might not be the best time to do it. Although prams have got fantastic rain covers, and if you've got a good coat and things, there's nothing wrong with that if your baby's nice and warm. If you're happy to do it, go ahead.
And lastly, I mean, how do you prevent your baby from becoming overstimulated? Of course, if you're really eager to have that interaction with your newborn as well, and obviously being overstimulated is not good for the baby and its tiredness and sleep patterns and all of those things. So I just wanted to touch on that lastly.
If your baby's I guess looking out for tired signs and knowing when your baby's getting tired is really important, and you will get to know how long your baby's happy to play for. When I was talking about a young newborn, that play really is that interaction and a bit of communication. It might just be while you're changing their nappy. That might be their playtime, and then they've had a feed, and then they talk to you a little bit, or you talk to them a little bit while they're on the change table, and then they might well need to be wrapped up and popped straight back to sleep. So it might just be quiet sort of play, but if they're, especially as they're getting older, if you're revving them up and having a good play and you're singing songs and they're really alert and excited, and they start showing you some tired signs, it's time then to really change the play or the interaction you're having with them to a quieter sort of play. And you might even look at reducing the lighting, so put a lamp on or turn off bright lighting, make sure screens are off, because that can be quite confusing to them, to their little brain when they're getting sleepy and wanting to go to sleep. And just really being guided by what they're telling you. I guess it is a tricky one, because you want to play with them, but you don't need to overdo it.
Yes. So this has been a great chat. If you, I guess, were to summarize your key messages now for anyone watching and listening, what would they be?
Just have fun with your baby whenever you can. It, again, take the pressure off. There's no need to be really structured in your play or knowing exactly what to do. In many cases, parents really do just know what to do. Enjoy that time and use toys and books and things like that to enhance that interaction you have with your baby.
Okay. And if anyone's got any questions for you and would like to reach out, and of course, if they wanted to maybe grab a copy of your book, whereabouts can they find you?
At belindajoyce.com, and my book is also available in the Kiddipedia store.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Belinda. I've loved this chat today, and look forward to another chat in the not too distant future. Until then, as always, stay safe. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.